if f of negative 1 equals 5 and f prime x is x cubed fx for all x, find f double prime negative 1 at negative 1. So f double prime is in fact derivative of f prime. F prime means first derivative. When we take the other derivative, then we get f double prime, and we have this, so we need to start from here, from this relation. Here first derivative is given x cubed fx. To find second derivative, let's take the derivatives of both sides. Then when we take the derivative of both sides, this becomes simply f double derivative. But here when we take the derivative, since we have a product, we need to use the product rule. Okay, our derivative of x cubed is 3x squared, leave second factor alone, plus leave first alone, times take the derivative of second, which is f prime. So that's second derivative for all x, and the question wants us to find at negative 1. Then replace, okay, substitute, plug in x equals negative 1, then we get f double prime negative 1, means we need to replace x throughout by negative 1. So this is 3 times negative 1 squared times f of negative 1 plus negative 1 cubed times f prime of negative 1. Let's see what we're gonna get. 3 times negative 1 squared is positive 1, f of negative 1, okay, f of negative 1, that's given here, that's 5. So this value is 5 plus negative 1 cubed. Okay, negative 1 cubed is negative 1 times what f prime of negative 1 is. Now here is a little bit of problem. We know that f prime, okay, f prime of x equals x cubed fx, but here we got f prime of negative 1, and this is true for all x. So to find f prime of negative 1, we need to plug in x equals negative 1. So this one is evaluated from this, replacing x by negative 1. So f prime of negative 1 is in fact x cubed, that means in our case negative 1 cubed. So let me use the same color. Okay, again one more time. So I'm using this because this is true for all x. This must be true for negative 1. So f prime of negative 1 is negative 1 cubed times fx, f at negative 1. Okay, we have had to finish this problem. 5, 1, this is 15 plus negative 1 times, this is negative 1 cubed, another negative 1, f of negative 1. Now this f of negative 1 is given somewhere in the question. Here f of negative 1 is just 5. So this is 5. That makes the final answer now 15, negative, negative, positive, 5, 15 plus 5, 20, final.